In Chapter 1, Six, a shrouded maiden of Iceland Cathedral, secretly watches King Benedict Castor's procession arrive for an unexpected divination. Alongside 5 fellow diviners, she perches atop the wall overlooking the approaching knights, drawing the short straw that marks her as the chosen dreamer. As the young king and his retinue reach the cathedral, Six encounters a dark-haired knight who mocks her before riding off. Summoned back inside by a talkative gargoyle, she prepares for the sacred ritual, donning the white silk robe embroidered with her number. The abbess and gargoyles oversee the ceremony as Six steps into the cold, viscous spring at the heart of the cathedral. King Castor, nervous and inexperienced, offers 20 gold pieces and confesses he only wishes to know if the gods favor him. The abbess then hands him a ceremonial knife, signaling the divination to begin. In Chapter 2, the abbess begins the divination ritual as King Castor cuts his palm and offers his blood for Six to drink, while the abbess recounts Trum's origins and the coming of 6 divine beings, the omens, one night. The dark-haired man from earlier leaves the cathedral. Six listens as the abbess names the omens and their sacred stone symbols before commanding her to dream. Submerged in the spring, Six drowns and enters the dreamscape, witnessing ominous visions tied to the 5 omens: a coin showing bad fortune, a spilled inkwell, a motionless oar, a discordant chime, and a frayed loomstone, all signs that the gods do not favor King Castor. Her dream turns darker as unseen footsteps follow her through the void before she falls into nothingness and wakes gasping, the divination complete. In Chapter 3, Six recalls her past as a foundling named Sybil Delling, taken in by the abbess and reborn through drowning in Iceling Spring to become a diviner. After the divination for King Castor, she awakens sick and exhausted, tended by the sarcastic gargoyle before venturing outside for air. On her way to rest, she encounters a knight named Maud and enters the dining commons, where she finds the young king drinking spring water and the dark-haired knight from before, Rodrick Myndacious, half-dressed and injured. Overwhelmed by the spring's scent, Six vomits and flees. Rory follows her to her cottage, and their tense exchange exposes his blasphemous disdain for divination and her faith in the omens. He mocks her shroud, her number, and her ignorance of the world beyond Iceling, naming himself as her sharp-tongued adversary. Six seethes through the night, unable to sleep. In Chapter 4, Dawn finds Six and the other diviners recovering from the previous day's events. Their gossip is interrupted by the abbess, who dismisses King Castor's ill portents and assigns them new duties. When the others tease Six about her obedience, she shocks them by proposing they sneak off the tour before their 10-year service ends. Determined to make it happen, Six approaches Rodrick Myndacious during breakfast, demanding he escort them. He refuses, but Six blackmails him by revealing she knows he, the king, and Maud stole Iceling's sacred spring water. Cornered, Rory reluctantly agrees. Later, as Six performs exhausting divinations for visitors, the knights quietly depart. That evening, she confides her longing for freedom to one outside their cottage. As they rest, a bundle of idleweed and a note signed R arrive, Rory's message telling her to be ready by nightfall, their secret plans set in motion. In Chapter 5, the diviners prepare for their secret night away from Iceling by smoking the idleweed Rory sent, easing their nerves and vowing sisterly loyalty beyond their service. Cloaked and disguised, they sneak from the tour under Maud's supervision, each assigned a night escort. Rory joins the group, exchanging tense looks with Six as they descend the Holloway Road toward Coulson Fair. Along the way, they encounter sprites in the trees, tiny, bright creatures that the knights view as dangerous and kill without hesitation, horrifying Six. Paired with a knight named Hamlin Fisher, she leaves the road to indulge in the fun Rory had mocked her for lacking. But when Hamlin's flattery turns crude and self-serving, Six recoils, realizing she feels nothing but revulsion. Refusing to be used or revealed, she leaves him behind and returns to the road alone, the lights of Coulson Fair ahead. In Chapter 6, Six arrives alone at Coulson Fair, awed by its color, noise, and worship of coin. When a desperate merchant grabs her, Rory intervenes violently, frightening her before revealing he was joking, mocking her ignorance of the world. Humiliated, Six drinks ale with Maud and the other diviners until Hamlin reappears, bruised, and Rory taunts her again. The tension fades as the group joins the fair's dances, and Six begins to feel free for the first time, even dancing with King Castor, who drunkenly thanks her for keeping secret their theft of Iceling's spring water. Seeking entertainment, The king challenges Rory to a duel of honor, 3 assaults without losing his footing. The diviners volunteer as his opponents. 1 and 4 fail, but when 6 attacks, she lifts and slams Rory to the ground before the cheering crowd, defeating him. Breathless, he calls her a scourge, and she coolly promises, "I'll see you in the spring." In Chapter 7, 6 wakes before dawn, restless after the night at Coulson Fair. She secretly summons the bat-like gargoyle to help perform Rory's penance divination without the abbess's knowledge. Rory arrives reluctantly, and their sharp exchange softens when he offers his blood for the ritual. With the gargoyle's hesitant help, 6 submerges herself in Iceling Spring and falls into a vivid, unsettling dream. In the vision, a pale moth lands on her shroud and pulls it away, revealing scenes of Traum, its 5 hamlets, Iceling Cathedral, and 6 living figures representing the omens. The vision turns horrific as she witnesses the diviners twisted and screaming in torment. When she awakens, Rory is gone, and the gargoyle calls the vision very curious. Outside, 6 watches Rory depart with the king's knights and hides her fear from the others. The next morning, something feels wrong. Diviner 4 has vanished without a trace. In Chapter 8, 6 searches the grounds of Iceling for the missing Diviner 4 but finds nothing. The abbess assigns gargoyles to guard each remaining diviner, though she seems unconcerned by the disappearances. That night, 2 vanishes despite the locked doors. 6 confides her fears to the abbess, revealing her dream of the moth, but the abbess dismisses her and implies the girls simply ran away. Determined to find answers, 6 escapes Iceling with the bat-like gargoyle and reaches Castle Luricht, only to learn the king and knights are gone. On her return, she discovers 5 has disappeared as well. The abbess has the remaining girls imprisoned inside their cottage. 1 removes her shroud and reacts in horror before vanishing overnight. Now alone, bloodied from struggling with a gargoyle, 6 prepares to remove her own shroud, when a shadow slips through the window. Rory appears, pinning her down, his sneer unmistakable. In Chapter 9, 6 awakens to find Rory in her locked room. Bruised and desperate, she accuses him of taking the missing diviners, but he insists he was sent by King Castor after hearing she had come to Castle Luricht. When Rory learns the abbess claims the girls ran away, he orders 6 to gather her things and helps her escape the cottage using a mysterious stone coin that lets them pass through solid walls. Outside, they're caught by the abbess and her gargoyles, who command 6 to return and Rory to be killed. A brutal fight erupts. Rory destroys the serpent and bear gargoyles with the coin, while 6 shatters the falcon's head with her hammer. With the bat-like gargoyles' help, they flee Iceling through the wall and into the Holloway Road. As they escape, 6 realizes Rory's magical coin matches the one from her visions and agrees to follow him to Secht to find her missing sisters. In Chapter 10, 6 and Rory ride his horse Fig toward the Secht, joined by the bat-like gargoyle. 6 studies Rory's magical coin, the same one from her visions, and suspects he may be the omen known as the Artful Brigand. Crossing the Tenor River, they meet a scribe who demands a toll and witnesses a starving water sprite attack 6, before Rory drives it off with a poisonous ink offering. Entering the Secht, 6 marvels at the city's order and parchment makers, but hides her identity under her shroud. Locals recognize her as a diviner, drawing dangerous attention until Rory intervenes. They soon encounter Maud and King Castor, who invites 6 to join their secret mission. Maud leads them to a hidden, ivy-covered door, revealing a vast library where an old man with stone eyes and the inkwell from 6's dreams greets her as a daughter of Iceling and beckons her closer. In Chapter 11, 6 meets the harried scribe, an omen who appears human but wields a magical inkwell that lets him vanish, attack, and manipulate ink. King Castor declares his intent to take up the mantle and challenge the scribe for his inkwell through a contest of knowledge. The scribe poses 3 questions, of love, faith, and war, mocking them with each. When the final riddle describes a hammer and chisel, 6 realizes the answer, allowing King Castor to win. For their counter-question, they ask the scribe to name 6, and when he fails, he loses his power. Enraged, he attacks, burning Maud and the king with molten ink before 6 knocks the inkwell from his grasp. Rory uses his coin to destroy the omen. Outside, 6 confronts Rory, accusing him of being the Artful Brigand. He reveals instead that he and the king killed that omen days ago. Rory isn't a god, but the one hunting and killing them. In Chapter 12, Six flees the harried scribe's lair, taking the gargoyle and escaping through the sect to process the horror of what she's witnessed. Exhausted, she finds temporary refuge in an abandoned forge, where the gargoyle steals food and comforts her. As they wander the city, Six questions everything she believed about the omens, the abbess, and her purpose as a diviner. Visiting the 3 pupil houses where foundlings are chosen for Aisling, she learns that the abbess only selects sick girls because they survive drowning and awaken strange. While reflecting on her loss of faith and identity, Six and the gargoyle intervene when 3 men pursue 2 young girls, violently fighting them off before being arrested. The guards deliver her to a nightly compound where Rory awaits. Despite their sharp words, he admits he was afraid she wouldn't return. Maud arrives relieved and takes Six inside to clean up before seeing the king. In Chapter 13, Six meets with King Castor, Benji, who reveals his plan to take up the mantle and continue his grandfather's mission to expose and destroy the omens. Showing her the harried scribe's inkwell and his grandfather's notebook, Benji explains that the omens were once mortal craftsmen who drank from Aisling's spring and gained eternal life through its magic. The abbess, he claims, is the 6th omen, the moth, who created the 5 stone objects and fabricated the faith that sustains Aisling's power. Benji insists the omens are false gods who use diviners and foundlings for profit and longevity. He asks Six to join him, promising to send knights to find her missing sisters and to reclaim Trom's faith from Aisling's control. Reeling but determined, Six agrees to travel with them. Later, in the training yard, Rory defeats a knight in brutal combat, then quietly tells Six she'll need armor for what lies ahead. In Chapter 14, Rory takes Six to the forge to craft her armor before their journey. As he melts beeswax to mold a fitted exoskeleton from her diviner dress, the 2 confront the tension between them. Six admits she tried to prove him wrong by nearly sleeping with Hamlin, and Rory confesses he'd wanted to shatter her faith and purity out of bitterness but regrets his cruelty. As he works, Six reflects on the abbess's manipulation, how kindness was used to control her, and how she now feels foolish for her blind devotion. Rory reassures her she's not worthless without obedience or usefulness. He molds the wax across her body, naming each piece of armor as he shapes it, until only her chest remains. Their charged proximity builds into raw tension before Rory abruptly pulls away, saying Maud will finish the work, leaving Six alone, encased in wax and shaken. In Chapter 15, Six, Maud, and the gargoyle travel by cart toward the fervent peaks to seek the ardent oarsman. Maud explains the harsh mountain terrain and the upcoming ceremony for King Benji's coronation, which Six plans to use as cover for their search. During the journey, Maud recounts her past, how she mentored Rory and raised Benji after his parents' deaths, once serving Benji's grandfather before being forced to betray him. Their caravan is attacked by massive mountain sprites, boar-like creatures of stone and earth. Amid the chaos, Benji falls and becomes trapped between rocks. Six refuses to abandon him, using her hammer and chisel to free him as the sprite closes in. The gargoyle rescues them by flight, and the knights slay the creature. Maud praises Six's courage and saves her wax-molded dress for armor, showing genuine respect and kindness toward her. In Chapter 16, the group reaches the rain-soaked village high in the fervent peaks, home to the followers of the ardent oarsman. The nobles greet King Benji coldly, doubting his faith until the gargoyle defends both him and Six. That night, the villagers hold a ritual at a vast basin where Benji must strip and submerge himself in freezing water to prove his devotion. As he performs the ceremony, Rory secretly leads Six away, using his coin to move them unseen. He places a flask of Aisling's spring water as bait to draw out the next omen. Hidden on a ridge, the 2 wait in tense silence, their guarded conversation revealing mutual vulnerability and attraction. When the night turns still, stone-skinned mountain sprites crawl from the shadows, guarding the lure. Finally, a cloaked figure emerges, drinks from the flask, and reveals itself the ardent oarsman has taken the bait. In Chapter 17, Six and Rory follow the ardent oarsman through the misty mountains, discovering he travels using his stone oar through water. With the gargoyle's reluctant help, they fly to a hidden plateau above the waterfall, finding the glassy basin from Six's dreams and a castle guarded by shale sprites. Inside, the oarsman greets them, his body made of limestone, his teeth jagged stone. His hall is filled with gold and guarded sprites, relics of the wealth he's hoarded as a false god. When he seizes Six, she fights back. stabbing his leg with her chisel, forcing him to admit he is no god but a man made powerful by Iceling's lies. Furious, the oarsman refuses to reveal what became of the missing diviners. Rory then challenges him to a contest of vigor, a duel to the death. The oarsman accepts but demands that Syx herself must be his opponent. In Chapter 18, Syx wakes after the confrontation with the ardent oarsman to begin 3 days of grueling training for their impending duel. Rory and Maud drill her relentlessly, teaching her combat, movement, and how to wield the artful brigand's coin. The coin's smooth side lets her teleport. The rough side smashes through anything it hits. As they spar, Rory pushes Syx past exhaustion, both physically and emotionally. Their tension peaks when a fight turns intimate, interrupted by Benji and Maud. Later, the group debates her readiness. Maud fears Syx will die, but Rory insists she can win. Syx overhears this, shaken but determined to prove them wrong. Over the next 2 days, she hones her speed, precision, and strength, breaking stone after stone with the coin. On the final night before the duel, unable to sleep, she answers a quiet knock. Rory, restless himself, invites her out into the night. In Chapter 19, on the eve of her duel, Syx joins Rory for a walk beneath the moonlight, and he leads her to hidden hot springs in the mountains. When she confesses she can't swim, he gently coaxes her into the water, their banter turning tender and intimate. As Rory massages her training aches, their emotional walls break until she slips underwater, triggering memories of drowning at Iceling. Rory rescues her, guilt-ridden, and their closeness deepens into mutual vulnerability and desire. Before parting, Syx makes him promise that if she dies, he'll protect the gargoyle and keep searching for the lost diviners. At dawn, Maud and the gargoyle help her don Maud's heirloom armor. The group ascends the mountain together, Syx armored and resolute, the coin in hand. But when they reach the ardent oarsman's castle, they find him waiting on a platform in the center of the basin, ready for battle. In Chapter 20, Syx faces the ardent oarsman alone atop his water-bound platform as a storm rages. Despite her fear and inability to swim, she arms herself with Maud's armor and her hammer and chisel, refusing to use the magical relics. Rory sends her off with a story of faith and promise. The oarsman declares no one may intervene, then unleashes his oar's full power, commanding the water to attack. Waves and blows batter Syx until he pins her, biting her neck and revealing that every decade a diviner is sent to him as a sacrifice. Her shroud tears away, exposing her eyes and stunning the omen. Seizing the moment, Syx drives her chisel into his chest and hammers it through his heart. Mortally wounded, the oarsman confesses he killed and drank the last diviner's blood. As he dies, he shatters the platform beneath them, sending Syx plummeting into the water below. In Chapter 21, Syx dreams of her drowning at Iceling Cathedral before awakening in a strange estate, Petula Hall in the Chiming Wood, bandaged, weak, and alive. Benji explains she was rescued after the duel and has been unconscious for days. Exploring the manor, she finds the harried scribe's inkwell, the oarsman's oar, and King Castor's grandfather's journal, which reveals that diviners have never been seen after their service ends and questions what they hide beneath their shrouds. Furious, Syx confronts Benji, realizing he withheld the truth about the diviner's fate. Overcome with grief, she flees into the forest and encounters Rory. She tells him the ardent oarsman's confession that the omens have been feeding on diviner's blood. Rory urges her not to give up, and in a moment of cathartic honesty, Syx finally reveals her true name, Sybil Delling. Together, they return to Petula Hall to rest and recover. In Chapter 22, Sybil remains bedridden in Petula Hall, consumed by grief and visions of her lost sisters until Maud, Rory, and the gargoyle coax her back to life. Fueled by vengeance, she vows to destroy the remaining omens, beginning with the faithful forester and end with the abbess, the sixth omen, the moth. Days later, the group travels through the Chiming Wood, Maud's homeland, where villagers treat her with reverence and whisper about omens. Sybil observes their painted faces and strange customs tied to birch tree creatures called Burk, who devour eyes. As King Benji prepares for his coronation, the group joins a ceremonial gathering in a sacred glen filled with bones, chimes, and burning idleweed. Before the watching nobles, Benji kneels to take up the mantle of the faithful forester's domain. Then, from the dais, the elders reveal an ancient stone chime, the very object from Sybil's prophetic dreams. In Chapter 23, the faithful forester's chime rings during Benji's coronation, unleashing visions and agony that fracture Sybil's mind. The chime's magic manipulates thoughts, while nobles burn idleweed, forcing Benji and the knights into trance-like stupors. As the ceremony unravels, Helena Eichel claims the chime is a divine gift, using it to intoxicate the crowd. Maud urges Rory to steal it while Sybil and the gargoyle protect Benji. But another strike of the chime brings violent visions of Aisling and the abbess. Then the glen erupts. Birch trees transform into monstrous birk, attacking the knights and devouring Helena Eichel. Rory rescues Benji while Sybil and the gargoyle fly to seize the chime from the behemoth birk's branches. She tears it free as Maud, still fighting below, delivers the killing blows. The wounded birk collapses, and in its fall it crushes Maud, killing her beneath the burning, desecrated glen. In Chapter 24, the group hides in Petula Hall after the battle. Maud lies broken and unconscious, and Benji drowns in guilt and grief until, days later, she awakens. Her survival restores the group's spirit, and she insists Sybil be knighted for her bravery. Though hesitant, Sybil agrees, refusing to swear false vows again. During the ceremony, she reveals her full name, Sybil Delling, and Benji knights her under his own creed, pledging her to protect and serve the kingdom rather than the omens. That night, restless and still in her armor, Sybil visits Rory. He comforts her, reminding her she carries no guilt for Aisling's horrors. When she asks him to remove her armor piece by piece, their closeness deepens into intimacy. Finally, Sybil asks Rory to remove her shroud, revealing her face for the first time. Seeing her, Rory calls her the most beautiful woman he's ever seen, and they share their first kiss. In Chapter 25, Sybil and Rory finally give in to their long-suppressed desire, sharing a night of intimacy that strips away every layer of armor and restraint between them. For the first time, Sybil removes her shroud, revealing her face and white, stone-like eyes, proof that Aisling spring water has changed her, making her part human, part omen. Though she fears Rory's rejection, he reassures her with fierce tenderness, declaring her beautiful and unrepentantly his. Their bond deepens into love as they reject the burdens of divinity, vows, and rules, choosing instead to lose themselves completely in each other. By morning, Sybil awakens alone and confronts her reflection, realizing the extent of her transformation and what it means to no longer belong solely to the mortal world. Yet, when Rory returns, unashamed and devoted, they surrender once more, defying faith, duty, and consequence to be wholly, dangerously human together. In Chapter 26, Sybil, Rory, Maud, and the knighthood journey from the Chiming Wood to the final hamlet, the Cliffs of Belladine, home of the heart-sore weaver. Maud struggles with pain and self-reflection, questioning the violence of her lineage, while Sybil begins to see how far she's come from Aisling. Along the way, Sybil deepens her bond with Rory, meeting him secretly on the beach, where their love rekindles. At dawn, she discovers her gargoyle missing, but finds him peacefully watching the sunrise, realizing together that they can never truly return home. In a symbolic act of rebirth, Sybil removes her shroud and lets it drift into the sea, accepting her transformation. Later that night, as a storm delays Benji's ceremony, Sybil senses unease. When she hears strange, stony footsteps, a hooded figure enters her room. Lightning reveals its face, something horrifying, before it vanishes, leaving Sybil screaming. In Chapter 27, Sybil awakens bruised after being attacked by the heartsore weaver, whose face was more stone than human. Benji plans to lure the omen with spring water during the coming ceremony. Later, the heartsore weaver's ritual unfolds peacefully, celebrating love and heartbreak as divine threads of life. Sybil reflects on her journey and growing feelings for Rory, who admits he's leaving the knighthood to stay by her side. After the ceremony, the group attempts to bait the weaver, but she doesn't appear. When the gargoyle leads them to a hidden site beneath the cliffs, they discover a dark opening echoing with lapping seawater, the entrance matching Sybil's recurring dream. Convinced the omen hides below, Rory insists on descending first despite his fear of confined spaces. He lands safely and calls for Sybil to follow. Determined, she climbs in after him, ready to face the heartsore weaver. In Chapter 28, Sybil, Rory, Maud, Benji, and the gargoyle descend into the caverns beneath the cliffs of Belladine to hunt the heartsore weaver. Splitting into groups, Sybil, Rory, and the gargoyle follow a tunnel marked by moths, but trigger a trap that floods the passage. Rory saves Sybil from drowning, though his coin is lost. When he dives to retrieve it, Sybil spots a shadow and follows a moth deeper underground, finding a hidden chamber filled with cocoons, weavings, and the lifeless body of her friend One. There, she confronts the Heartsore Weaver, a half-stone, goat-like omen who reveals the Abbess of Iceling is the sixth and final omen, named Aisling herself. The Weaver, weary of immortality, begs Sybil to end her life. Sybil strikes her down, freeing a swarm of moths. With her dying breath, the Weaver reveals the gargoyles were once diviners, beginning with the first, Bartholomew. In Chapter 29, Sybil sits beside One's body and the slain Heartsore Weaver when Rory and the gargoyle find her. The gargoyle then reveals the truth of their origins. Once a human foundling, he was resurrected by a stonemason, the Abbess of Iceling, who used the spring's magic to create life and shape belief. Together, they made the first 5 omens from dead craftsmen, fashioning divine relics to control Trom's faith. The foundling, named Bartholomew, became her first diviner, forced to dream prophecies that built Iceling Cathedral. When he rebelled, she starved and remade him into a gargoyle. The abbess then began creating new diviners, girls reborn through the spring, to sustain her holy myth. Each generation served, then vanished, their memories erased. Realizing she too was one of them, Sybil learns the gargoyle was once human, Aisling's first diviner, and that both their lives were bound to the abbess's deceitful divinity. In Chapter 30, the group returns to the Tor to confront Iceling Cathedral and the abbess. Sybil, Bartholomew, Rory, Maud, and Benji ride urgently to seize the final stone object and end the omens. They breach the gates by throwing the artful brigand coin. Maud, Benji, and Rory battle gargoyles while Sybil confronts the abbess. Sybil rips off the abbess shroud and discovers the abbess's stone and holds a loomstone. The abbess teleports Sybil into the spring and attempts to drown her, claiming diviners must be replaced, then attacks with gargoyles. Rory rescues Sybil and the fight spreads through the cathedral. The bat-like gargoyle protects Sybil and fractures gargoyle attackers. Benji, Maud, and Rory press the assault as the abbess vanishes and reappears using the loomstone. Sybil strikes the abbess until she is smashed to dust with help from the gargoyle, Rory, Maud, and Benji ending omens. In Chapter 31, Sybil and her allies destroy Iceling Cathedral, collapsing it and burying the spring, the last source of divine power. As they escape the ruins, Benji suddenly turns on them, stabbing Rory and seizing the artful brigand's coin. He shatters the gargoyle's wing, revealing his betrayal. He intends to rebuild faith under his rule by using Sybil as a living symbol, the last diviner. When Maud refuses his orders, Benji renounces her knighthood. He demands Sybil come with him to Castle Luric to serve as his queen and prophet, promising to spare her companions in return. To save Rory, Maud, and the dying gargoyle, Sybil agrees, bidding them a painful farewell. Dragged away in tears, they leave her behind as knights arrive to witness the ruin. Standing barefoot in the orchard, Sybil faces Benji's delusion as he claims she's free and declares himself the new god of Trom.